Welcome back to Veterans of the North, a podcast by the DAV of Minnesota, dedicated to empowering all who have served. Again, I'm your host, Trent Dilks. Back with me is Mike McKelney and Jenna Schmidtke. We're going to wrap up a little bit of stories about service here in the second part and then talk a little bit about coming home. So, Mike, when we left you, you had just done a refresher course and you're off to Afghanistan on a mission. Is that right?
Yeah. So we get into Uzbekistan and get a mission, and it's sort of a split team. Then it's a 2-team, and then it ended up being a split team. And so we went down to Pakistan, about half the team, and prepped some things. The rest of the team came down the day we actually infilled. And then we ended up infilling and taking Hamid Karzai, who ended up being the president there for the first 10 years. Took him in and started insurgency in southern Afghanistan. And it was kind of game on from the day we landed, not doctrinally correct at all. You always plan on when you're coming out, how you're coming out. And they're like, you don't need to worry about that. Our group commander, right before we infilled said, if it gets bad, if it gets really, really bad, and I don't think he knew the whole team could hear him telling our team leader this, but if it gets really bad, kill as many of them as you can. And so that was kind of the attitude we launched in with. And then, literally we got in one night. The next morning, the Taliban were probing us. And we started getting lethal drops, weapons, guns in, and just started kind of building the force. And, within literally hours of being on the ground, Tarin was getting big rise up in Tarin. They were, hanging people and killing people that were, going to support the Americans. So we had to rush over there and had a big long gunfight. That was kind of the first taste. Kind of seeing and doing all that. And then, but anyway, started liberating towns, moving south, right before the Taliban, I think, surrendered. We got blown up, I think, a day or two right before that. Before they announced Karzai was going to be the actual president, and the Taliban not necessarily surrendered, but were deemed combat ineffective. Everything. Yeah. There's still fighting going on after all that.
Yeah.
Rah-rah-ree. But, so a lot of us got wounded and killed morning of December 5th. And eventually, medevaced home. There was no medevac in country at that time. Everything was flying from either Uzbekistan or Pakistan. So there was nothing was established. We were kind of the first guys in the chute, and it was all that we wanted and then some. But, I lost a lot of good buddies.
Breaking trail over there.
Yeah.
Jenna, we leave you. You're in Iraq. You're traveling around to FOBs.
Yeah.
That's all right. I mean, is there a part of your service you'd like to highlight, or someone you served with?
Yeah, I think that a big part of being a woman in sector with predominantly males was a lot to live up to. I had to stay on my game, work hard, but in addition to that, be a medic. You go over there with a group, and inevitably you become family, and you care about them. And when it's your job, it's your sole purpose to keep them alive. I think that's very important. And then having that camaraderie, not just with each other, but it is a little different. So having my fellow female medic, Corporal Ellis, and we became very close, and I was very grateful for her. She was senior to me. She had already done a tour over there as well, and was no question was a stupid question. She was just
good mentor.
Yeah, and my rock, my person. But I think just staying on your game, living up to the standard, making sure, if nothing else, above that, trying to make sure that I'm not failing in any of my duties. And then, after, springtime is always kind of it pops off. So shit was hitting the fan. Sorry.
No, that's all right. We're good.
No, it's true. We know what you're talking about.
And it was Mother's Day that year. in 2008, and we had been out all day in sector looking for SIGACs and EFP, and it was one of the first EFPs we had come on. And we were out there for probably, I don't know, over 12 hours looking for that thing. LT said, we're going in. So, and we got to go in that night and actually eat dinner, which was rare, you know. And so I was happy, in good spirits. I got to see Jess. They were going back out on recon to the same AO. It was that we were in all day, and then they ended up getting hit by the EFP, and Jess lost their life. She was killed in action. And so that was a very pivotal point in my military service too. One of the big things that, I take away from that, for a while it was really difficult.
Yeah.
I was very angry, very hurt, very broken. But now as you come or kind of navigate through those emotions, that life experience, I'm just so grateful that I knew her.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful for my time with her, how much she taught me, not just as a medic, but as a person and as a woman, as a friend, as a sister. And I'm just so grateful. And so.
Yeah, you never really forget. It's interesting. We were driving over here and I was thinking, okay, what am I going to say? Blah, blah, blah. And what I looked up to in group, because, everybody's kind of cool there. But Kevin Moorhead, he was killed on a raid 2003 in Iraq. And but he was one of my buddies, my heroes, one of my hunting partners. And I remember after I was wounded, this was like fall of 2002. We were in Stuttgart, Arkansas at Max Prairie Wings. And I was kind of hiding my hand in my pocket. And he's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm just not living with it well yet." And he's like, "You need to wear that like a badge of honor." And, that echoed through my head just driving over here. And that was, 23 years ago.
Yeah.
And Kevin was killed September 11th, the night of September 11th on a raid 2003. And so you never forget. And it's like 5 minutes ago.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing how some of it can feel like it was just, so recently. And then you start adding and doing the math and you're like, oh, well, I guess it was 18 years ago. But, some of it feels like yesterday. But I think it's huge when you can move from that anger, like you were saying, that initial anger, and when you can start to put into perspective what the people we lost brought to us and how those things happened. And,
absolutely.
And then it can lead to a sense of purpose afterwards, right?
Yes.
Mike, you've got to have been one of the first into Walter Reed, your group.
Yeah.
And so you kind of see that initial shock of what's going on and what this is going to look like. Can you share anything about your experience there being one of the...
It was a pretty interesting turning point, too, because, I think one of the first things you do is they'll send folks in to say, okay, there was a guy, Fred Downs, he used to be a VA, one of the primary guys for the prosthetics department. And he came over and he had lost his right arm above the elbow in Vietnam. And he was giving me a demonstration with this hook and everything. And it was just like, it's 2000 something. Like, I'm going to get stuck with one of these hooks. But the military was kind of transitioning at that time too. And interestingly, they had just gone or signed a contract or policy or something that said, if you got an amputation, you don't have to get necessarily a device here. You can, we have all these different contractors.
Yeah.
So that was kind of new. And, so I think, being the only sort of game in town, it was our team that was there.
Yeah.
A couple of dudes from Virginia started filtering in, that more special operations, Secret Army, Northern Virginia. And so we got a lot of tension, and that went well. But I remember when I got out of there, I went back to Fort Campbell, and it wasn't, I was still doing PT and OT at Fort Campbell there, and there was a young E3, I think it was E3. He had lost his arm too, and I think it was like a VBED or something in Iraq, and now it's whenever that was. It was he was from Afghanistan too, but he was in the OT and PT, and didn't have a device yet, didn't have anything, and I had given him all these cards, and I was talking to his mother, and I'm like, you got to be a little more forceful, and we'll call these people and get you squared away, and you're a hero, and da da da, and I don't know. I think that's for me was kind of a switch where I sort of said, I want to do something to help.
Yeah.
My fellow brothers and sisters that are getting injured, because I knew it wasn't going to end anytime soon, and there's going to be a lot more of them.
No, and it's so mine was an IED blast in 2006, up in 59.5 on MSR Tampa in Iraq, and we were stopped. The convoy in front of us was hit. Brings everything to a halt. We're waiting for a medevac for a U.S. troop from there. We're at a halt. I'm doing my 5 and 25 checks, and I do the 5 and nothing under the truck. And there's no, you're running 50 empty trucks. Actually, I'll never forget. We had run up there because the people on Anaconda or Balad or whatever, it had 100 different names. Toby Keith was coming.
Oh yeah,
and they needed more bleachers. There's like 40,000 troops up there, and so they needed more bleachers. So we ran bleachers up to Anaconda, and we're on our way back from bleachers, and we're bringing back their empty reefer trucks for their ice cream and stuff like that.
Reefer? Oh, refrigerator.
Yeah.
Okay, wrong reefer.
No, you're on reefer, yeah.
All right.
Anyway, we're stopped, and, I do that, and all of a sudden I'm doing a little bit further out check, and I stop, and it's all garbage. It's just, it's Baghdad. It's northern Baghdad. It's all garbage, but something's weird about this garbage. And I go, something's weird about, boom, and the weird garbage blew up. And later it was like a 155 round that had been buried there is what the blast analysis had been, and rocked me pretty good. I came to on the bottom of the truck, and my mouth woke up kind of before I did. I can't say them because we're running out of cuss words, but apparently my mouth just started dropping F-bomb after F-bomb, and then I kind of opened my eyes, and truck was capable of moving. We go on, but my truck commander ended up being medevaced a week later. What would later become traumatic brain injury, right? Then it was just kind of getting your bell rung. Back to the States, and then he would be here. I can't remember which one of those medical recovery units. And
isn't that some? Prepping for the USO show and dudes are getting whacked. That's just some crock.
But
what are you going to do?
Well, what are you going to do? They needed their bleachers, and the chow halls need ice cream, and you can't fly it all in. I often wonder if the people on those big bases ever thought about how they got that stuff. Somebody had to bring you those bleachers so you could see Toby Keith. I never was a Toby Keith fan. May he rest in peace after that. But so he comes back here, and anyway, he passes away in one of these medical units here. And he had passed away after falling unconscious and being unchecked on in his room for 2, almost 3 days. And so it was an absolute failure of everything that should have been in place.
And where was he at? Where did this happen?
I can't remember which one it was at. There was a medical recovery unit in, is it Knox?
Fort Knox?
Fort Knox, I think, had one of the medical recovery units. And I believe it was there. And so he passes away. Nobody checked on him. Complete failure of the chain of command. Complete failure at everything that should have taken place. Yeah. His wife is calling frantically. He leaves behind 2 kids, and Gerald passes away. And so you fast forward, that later really became a motivating factor for what I've spent the last decade doing. That was an absolute breakdown, a betrayal of what we owed to our service members. And so, you can eventually find that sense of purpose. Jenna, I think your experience, did that lead to where you're at now and finding that sense of continuing to serve?
Most definitely. I think that being able to take what we've gone through, the trials, that's definitely something, and just applying. I mean, it's like a deep-rooted passion almost, and it's tenacious in you. Once you feel that peace and just being able to help give somebody else hope, whether it's adversity that you've seen or you can see in them that maybe you can identify with, and being able to be the person that maybe you needed or that you that they need, whether it's with benefits or just listening to them, following up, whatever it is, the wide array of different areas that we work in as a CVSO. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can all get past it too. I think time is a big factor, and I mean, you never forget, and the feelings necessarily don't go away. But you know, you can move on to other things, and you know, lead productive lives. And I think that's you know one of the things we're all you know talking about here today is you know everybody sitting at this table is doing pretty darn well and has been through some adversity, but you know, we're not broken. We hear about that, and society hears about that, and we want them to remember it because it's not an easy thing. But you know, I'd say more by and large, and you know the job too, and Trent as well.
Yeah.
You know, you deal with a portion of veterans, and but by and large, the majority are doing just fine. Have moved on to other things,
And I think, you know, as we come to an end of this segment too, I think of there's rough times, right? I think I'm Jen. I don't know for sure, but Mike and there are rough times afterwards. And I know there's a point where I couldn't leave my apartment. I had gotten back, and I would become physically ill if I tried to go out and leave. And so I'm on the floor. I'm throwing up every time I try to exit. And it's kind of right then that was my decision point. That was I can either go through this or I'm going to quit. And, you know, and so there are those hard times, but you can make them through them. And, you know, like you said, Mike, everybody at this table is doing pretty good. And there's a path forward from that. And in segment 3, I really look forward to talking about some of the benefits and the things that are available and that can be utilized and ways we can do that. I'm going to end segment 2 with a quote that I got down in Arizona. I was a mentor at a PTSD camp, which is quite a transition from not being able to leave my apartment to being able to go down and mentor at one of those. And it was, don't let serving your country be the last great thing you did.
I agree.
Don't let serving your country be the last great thing you did. I hope you all hang out, and we're going to join us for segment 3. We're going to talk about some of the benefits and things that are available to help veterans move forward and lead successful after service.